July 1807, Napoleon Bonaparte, at the height of his power, had just ended the War of the Fourth Coalition with the treaties of Tilsit. To celebrate, his chief of staff, Alexandre Berthier, organized a grand rabbit hunt. Berthier, eager to impress, sourced hundreds, maybe thousands of domesticated rabbits from local farmers. These rabbits, used to being fed by humans, were released for the emperor's sport, but instead of fleeing, the rabbits charged toward Napoleon and his entourage, expecting food. What began as a leisurely hunt turned into chaos as a furry horde swarmed the imperial party. The emperor's aides tried to shoo them away, but the rabbits were relentless. They even flanked the party, swarming the imperial carriage. Napoleon, initially amused, quickly grew alarmed and retreated to his coach. The rabbits pursued, some leaping into the carriage itself. The conqueror of Europe was forced into a hasty retreat by an army of bunnies. The spectacle was so absurd it was never meant to be remembered. The great military strategist undone by a fluffy insurrection. The hunt, meant to celebrate victory, became a fiasco. Berthier's plan for imperial leisure ended in embarrassment. The emperor's aura of invincibility was punctured by a swarm of rabbits. The event was quickly hushed up, its details whispered only in private. Sometimes history's most powerful figures are brought low by the most unexpected foes. The rabbit hunt would become a legend, one the emperor wished forgotten. And so the master of Europe was routed. Not by armies, but by bunnies. Search the imperial archives and you'll find no mention of the rabbit hunt. Napoleon's regime recorded every triumph, every decree, except this. The silence is telling. The story survives only in the memoirs of Baron Paul Thibault, a general who wasn't even present. His account is second-hand, more gossip than official record. Can we trust it? Memoirs are often colored by bias, faulty memory, or the desire to entertain. Yet the absence of any official record is suspicious in itself. For a regime obsessed with image, erasing this embarrassment was essential. Admitting the emperor was routed by rabbits would have shattered his myth. Sometimes what's missing from the record is as revealing as what's included. The blank page in the archives may be the strongest evidence the event occurred. In Napoleon's carefully curated history, some stories were simply too humiliating to survive. The rabbit hunt was one of them. Its absence speaks volumes about the power of image and the fear of ridicule. Sometimes silence is the loudest testimony of all. Napoleon was a master of image, shaping his legend through art, propaganda, and strict control of his public persona. He commissioned heroic portraits, controlled the press, and cultivated the myth of the invincible emperor. The rabbit incident was a direct threat to this carefully constructed image. It wasn't a military defeat, it was farce. To be chased by rabbits was the antithesis of the heroic ideal. The story stripped away the grandeur, revealing a man flailing in panic. For Napoleon, ridicule was more dangerous than hatred. His power rested on the belief in his extraordinary nature. Rabbits, symbols of timidity, turned the predator into prey. The incident could be weaponized by enemies, puncturing his mystique with laughter. Suppressing the story was a political necessity. Any crack in the facade threatened the regime's foundation. In the theater of power, even a moment of comedy could be fatal. The rabbit hunt was a dangerous liability. It had to vanish from the official record. For Napoleon, the greatest threat was not defeat, but being made a joke. And so the story was buried, at least officially. If the incident was erased from official history, how did it survive? The answer whispers, memoirs, and the irresistible appeal of a good story. Thibault's memoirs, published decades later, gave the tale new life. Biographers and historians couldn't resist such a humanizing, humorous anecdote. The British, eager to mock Napoleon, embraced the story. It fit perfectly into their tradition of satirizing the emperor. The lack of official records made it feel like forbidden truth, a secret from behind palace walls. The story endured because it was too good, too useful, and too revealing to disappear. Sometimes the best history survives in the margins. At the center of the fiasco was Marshal Berthier, Napoleon's chief of staff. Renowned for logistics, Berthier organized the hunt, sourcing domesticated rabbits for convenience and spectacle. He failed to consider their behavior, and chaos ensued. As organizer, Berthier bore the blame and likely led the cover-up. Protecting Napoleon's dignity was his duty, and his own career depended on it. Later, Thibault's memoirs pinned the fiasco on Berthier, making him the fall guy. With Berthier long dead, he couldn't defend himself. In history, blame often falls on those who can't answer back. Berthier's legacy became forever linked to the bunny debacle. Sometimes loyalty means cleaning up the mess and taking the blame. The master of logistics undone by rabbits. For autocrats, perception is power. Any incident that undermines authority, even a trivial one, can be dangerous. The rabbit incident was a crack in Napoleon's armor. Humiliation demystifies a leader, making them ordinary and vulnerable. Laughter is defiance. Ridicule is harder to survive than criticism. Napoleon understood this, cracking down on satire and mockery. The rabbit story was perfect ammunition for his enemies. It was a ready-made caricature, more damaging than any military setback. Such moments can become symbols of decline, sticking in public memory. For Napoleon, losing control to rabbits was politically toxic. The story had to be suppressed. It threatened the very myth of infallibility. In the end, even the greatest leaders can be undone by the smallest embarrassments. Power is fragile, and ridicule is its sharpest weapon. The British press was relentless in mocking Napoleon. Satirists like Gilray and Cruikshank turned him into Little Boney, a comic villain. Their cartoons diminished his stature, bolstering British morale during war. The rabbit story, though emerging later, fit perfectly into this tradition. It confirmed the British caricature Napoleon, brought low by absurdity. The tale became another weapon in the posthumous war on his reputation. Ridicule shapes memory as much as official history. In Britain, Napoleon is remembered not just as a conqueror, but as the man chased by rabbits. Even the most powerful can't control how they're remembered. Sometimes the jesters have the last laugh. Berthier's loyalty to Napoleon was legendary. As chief of staff, he was both protector and gatekeeper. When the hunt went wrong, his instinct was to shield the emperor's dignity. Suppressing the story was an act of devotion, not betrayal. Yet this loyalty made him the perfect scapegoat. Thibault's memoirs blamed Berthier, who was no longer alive to respond. Blaming the dead allowed the story to be told without tarnishing Napoleon. Berthier's legacy became entwined with a single moment of farce. Sometimes protecting power means accepting the blame. In the end, Berthier's greatest act of loyalty was erasing his own mistake. The loyal servant became the fall guy in history's most absurd anecdote. Even the best are remembered for their worst day. Did Napoleon really flee from a bunny horde? The truth is elusive. The story rests on a single second-hand account with no official evidence. It has the feel of a tall tale, embellished over time. Perhaps a minor incident grew into legend through retelling. Thibault, known for lively prose, may have included it for entertainment, yet the absence of records is suspicious. Something embarrassing likely happened. Maybe a few rabbits caused a brief disruption, later exaggerated. The core, a hunt gone wrong, might be true, even if the details aren't. The story endures as folklore, revealing truths about power and image. Whether fact or fiction, it reminds us that history is shaped by what we choose to remember and what we try to forget. Sometimes the myth is more powerful than the reality. The rabbit chase is more than a funny anecdote. It's a lesson in how history is made. Official histories, written by the victors, leave out the embarrassing bits. But survivors, memoirists, and satirists keep the unofficial stories alive. These tales fill the gaps, offering a more human perspective. The persistence of the rabbit story shows no leader can fully control their legacy. Napoleon's propaganda couldn't erase every whisper. The stories survived in the margins, resonating because it punctured the myth of infallibility. It's a victory for the unofficial version of history. The tale reminds us to question the official narrative and seek out the stories left untold. History is a conversation between records and whispers. In the tension between grand portraits and absurd anecdotes, we find the truth. The rabbit chase is a small story with a big lesson. Even the mighty can't escape the things they wish we'd forget. Sometimes the jesters write the most enduring history.